Hello and welcome everyone. For those of you who have watched my content before, you know I have a deep affinity for Herzog and Kinski. For those of you new to the channel, it was actually a movie between these two that made me start this channel. It mystified me and made me want to expand my movie tastes and kept me coming back to see what this duo would do next. This list includes 5 movies in which Klaus Kinski and Herzog collaborated together as actor-director duo, as well as a documentary that outlines the relationship between Herzog and Kinski. Despite the ranking of this list, I want to say or preface, I would recommend any and all of these movies, but if you've never seen a Werner Herzog movie, he has a very unique style. And it took me a little bit to warm up to him, but it's definitely a style worth warming up to. The first film on this list is Woyzeck. Klaus Kinski plays the title character, and this film is based upon an unfinished play that was written back in October of 1836, back in the good old days, by George Büchner, who could not finish the play before his untimely death in February of the same year. Klaus's Woyzeck is a lowly soldier in the mid-19th century who has taken a wife played by Eva Mates, with whom had a child prior to her relationship with Klaus Kinski. The rank that Klaus has puts him in a situation where he has to put his physical and mental health at stake in order to make the extra cash he feels his family needs. And this task proves fruitless because it ultimately leads to his and his family's undoing. The trailer for this movie was ultimately what was the hook that brought me into watching it. I was definitely interested in Kinski Herzog collaborations by this point, but the trailer had Klaus Kinski with this insane intensity in his eyes as he's going through kind of a boot camp-esque scene, and immediately I thought, well, this is one I want to watch and actually cover this specific movie on an episode of my podcast with Ethan for those of you who want a really deep analysis. The story itself was promising enough, and the kind of life beating down Woyzeck / Kinski's character was really, really compelling and a great character study. Seeing Kinski play a character who has reached his brink was quite interesting because he's shown the ability to excel with intense emotions in the past viewings I had seen from him, and this film again gives him that opportunity. The kind of singular criticism that I give Herzog films are that his glacial pacing can sometimes feel a bit slow, and this film suffers from that a little bit as well, and also has kind of the unique criticism that isn't generally found in Herzog films, where the execution during the climactic scene is a little bit see-through / cheesy in that because it is kind of see-through. But aside from that, I think it is a very good film, and I give it a 7 out of 10, and obviously ranks 6 out of the 6 movies that we're going to be covering here. I would like to just take a break right now and thank you for joining. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you are, click the like button. Subscribe to the channel. I have videos like this which includes my Tarkovsky ranked and my most disturbing videos so far list. I also have regular podcast as well as podcast episodes where I have edited them and have had editors put videos and pictures in as well. So definitely check that out if you want some deeper analysis as well as some other lists. Thanks again for watching. Up next, we have...
I need a man like you. I have 600 slaves in my sugar fields, and my overseer's an idiot. No one grows more sugar than I.
Oh, God! Cowherd! Bastard! You! What have you got to say to yourself?
Sugarcane planter. I am the bandit Cobra Verde.
The last film between Kinski and Herzog, and the last film that I saw between the two. It was fairly recent. It was last week, and it was definitely not a letdown whatsoever. And I preface that because I was really thinking that it could be, just because of the timing of it all. But before I get there, I want to say the movie has Kinski portray the title character, who is an anti-hero bandit who definitely feels inspired by the Western heroes or Western anti-heroes of the time. The story is very unique and very interesting as it follows Kinski through the lens of slave trading being very big at the time in which this takes place, but also is in slave trading it's on its last legs, but use of slaves is very prevalent for the setting. And it leads Verde into a situation in which he crosses paths with the wrong guy, and they kind of send him on a suicide mission to try to restart the slave trade. So they send him to Africa in the midst of a civil war with the intention of sending back slaves, because he has a skill set that is both useful for the slave traders, but also one that is able to set each other at odds. One thing that I thought near the beginning of this film was that Kinski looked older, like clearly older. He was balding a little bit. Facially, he definitely looked, not his young self. And I was worried if he was going to be able to pull this strong character off, because the films in which he's in, a lot of the responsibility to really have things jump off the screen fall upon Kinski. And he didn't disappoint. Can't judge a book by its cover, and I certainly should not have done that. He played his role very, very well and put my concerns to rest fairly quickly. The movie is also very vibrant. Its color palette is tremendous. It's a really interesting story too. And I think, you could argue one of the best paced non-documentary films that Herzog has made. This is a film I'd recommend. It's certainly a deep cut. I think a lot of Herzog fans might not have even seen this yet. But I think if you're a fan of Herzog, you should seek it out. Like Woyzeck, I give this a 7 out of 10 as well, and ranks 5th out of 6. The next film we're going to be discussing is Aguirre, The Wrath of God. Some of the...
Wenn ich, Aguirre, will, dass die Vögel tot von den Bäumen fallen, dann fallen die Vögel tot von den Bäumen herunter. Ich bin der Zorn Gottes.
Aguirre, ich sage dir auf den Kopf zu, dass du mit Ursula etwas vorhast. Ich weiß es ganz genau.
Behind-the-scenes animosity and turbulence make this film much more interesting. just to think about while you're watching and also after you're done watching. But it's a really great character study, and Kinski as Aguirre, he was honestly great. This was the first Herzog movie I had seen. I went into this movie completely blind, and from the beginning, this was the movie that made me want to watch more art house films and expand my cinematic tastes. I'm so glad I watched this movie, but I gotta say I wasn't prepared for this style at that time, especially. It was slower in a lot of moments, and I understand now Herzog was using that to let you absorb the atmosphere, but I was like, man, the first half, this is a slow movie. Where is this going? But after it finished, I couldn't help shake this feeling as though Herzog was someone I wanted to learn more about. There seemed to be something to this movie that was... I knew it wasn't a bad movie. I was like, there's something deeper to this. And I wanted to search it out and see if I could kind of find what was going on there. And I didn't know like who the hell Herzog was. I had only seen the man without knowing who he was through Jack Reacher, of all places. That's how I was introduced to him. I was in high school, watched Jack Reacher, and he's in that film. Never thought about that actor / character / director I love now and documentarian I love now since then. And I was also fairly aware of Grizzly Man. I remember a lot of comedians making jokes about Grizzly Man, so it was in the zeitgeist of things that I had heard of, but
and believes he has become at one with the grizzly bears. And not only do grizzly bears, he says in this film, have the capacity for intellect, they have the capacity for sympathy, and then one of them eats him. Funniest film I've ever seen in my life. I laughed till I thought I was going to throw up.
I had never seen the documentary, so I knew close to nothing about Herzog coming into this film, but came out wanting to learn as much about him as possible. All that being said, I was really impressed with both the filming in this inhospitable location and how amazingly choreographed the shots were on the mountain, on the river, and the depiction of the slow and utter descent into madness for Aguirre. And that is really where Herzog and Kinski shine looking back at this film. While it took a little for the movie to fully resonate me, it turned me into a slightly obsessed fan of Werner and cinema alike. My rating for Aguirre, all things, being said, from when I originally watched this was a 7 out of 10, and is a movie that I think is most worthy, up there with Throne of Blood and this, of a rewatch. They're like priority 1 and 2 for when I start going through movies again, because I think that rating doesn't completely justify how good the movie actually is. But I use that basis just because that is how I felt at the time. But now that I'm more familiar with Herzog's style, I think it would be better. But I have to say, as it is now, 7 out of 10 and ranks 4th out of 6.
Ich lege keinen Wert mehr auf Sonnenschein und blitzende Fontänen, für die sich die Jugend begeistern mag. Ich liebe die Dunkelheit und die Schatten.
Jonathan, fahr nicht. Ich habe ein Gefühl. Ach was. Du wirst in Gefahr sein. Fahr nicht.
Er wird mein Essen. Ich muss heute noch zu Graf Draculas Schloss.
We start the top half with Nosferatu, which is Herzog's interpretation of the title character / Dracula, as they're kind of depicted as the same person in at least the media I've seen of the two. And it's my favorite depiction of that character. You know, the Dracula story from Bram Stoker. And the comparisons are three of the greats. These are the ones that I've seen, which I compare it to, which I prefer it over. That's Murnau, Browning, Coppola, and those are great directors. Obviously, it's arguable, very, very subjective, and a lot of people feel like it's maybe not Coppola's best film ever. All that being said, I think I prefer Nosferatu clearly. Now, the pace is slightly glacial in places, but the shots captured rival the iconic shots of the F.W. Murnau Nosferatu, thanks in part to Herzog's beautiful use of color and landscapes, whilst having a really gritty and rooted in realism feel to it as well. Also, there are slight course corrections in the story, which greatly changed the outcome for Jonathan Harker's character and better depicts the psychology of Nosferatu. You know, when I was writing this script and thinking about it, I think Dracula definitely touches on it a little bit. There's little lines that kind of get across this existential doom where living infinitely is a curse. And that is really the tragedy of the whole movie. And Browning does that, and I think Herzog does that really well. Coppola, from memory, I don't remember that being so much a sticking point, but I do have to say Herzog's ability to do that made the story resonate with me the most. And for that's why I like his interpretation the best. And I also thought Jonathan Harker's ending was really, really cool as well. So the story felt unique, and it breathed life into the story, which had been just kind of retreads and beaten to death in the past. So that artistic license was very well used on this classic story. This is also one of Klaus Kinski's more reserved performances, and I think it suits him well. For a Nosferatu, you could definitely be, you know, his very manic self, but it definitely suits the character to be reserved. And I know from the next film we're going to talk about, this is something that Herzog had been trying to kind of get into Klaus's head, that a lot of the acting can be done beneath the surface, like kind of like a simmering tension. But moving away from that, the insane shots of the rats scurrying was also crazy. Seeing them go through the ancient looking courtyards was awesome. Seeing the faithfulness to the time period was a sight to behold. And the colorfulness of everything made this movie stand out amongst the rest. And I think it is a great movie. I gave Nosferatu the Vampyre an 8 out of 10, and it ranks 3rd on my list. Next, we have My Best Friend.
Ich bin nicht der offizielle Kirchen-Jesus.
War nicht ganz normal, aggressiv. Vom Charakter her war diabolisch. Wir waren zusammen ja wie zwei kritische Massen, die eine gefährliche Mischung ergaben, wenn sie in Berührung kamen.
Los, machen Sie die Kamera und drehen den Scheißdreck runter!
Das werde ich nicht tun, Herr Kinski.
And if you clicked on this video, I would bargain you might have seen this film, because it outlines the relationship between the two. And despite this being a smaller list, I think if you were, I mean, you could easily go out and watch all of these films in a week. But if you were to choose one, this is the one that I would say universally anyone would like. You could never had seen a Herzog film. You could have never seen Kinski act. And this would be the film that I would recommend. And look, I say that because Herzog has a very unique style. He has crazy, unique plots, and he's very art house. So his style might not gel with everyone else, but this is a story that I think everyone can relate to, or not relate to, but understand and appreciate how crazy these stories are between the two. There's a ton of actor-director duos who've had higher quality output and higher quantity output, but few have had the type of relationship outlined in My Best Friend, which is why I wanted to make this video in the first place. Herzog has been claimed to be crazy because of his choice of practical effects in Fitzcarraldo, his choice of location in Fitzcarraldo and Aguirre, The Wrath of God. And a lot of people feel like, he does the extreme for the sake of doing so, which is a claim he has denounced every time it's brought up. Klaus Kinski, on the other hand, is said to be extremely hard to work with. He's an actor who will scream at cast and crew and walk off the set with little provocation. And the tales that Herzog is able to illuminate between these two it's required viewing for anyone who has made it to this point in the video and has yet to see it. Truly, it's a great documentary. That's all I can say. I give it an 8 out of 10, and it ranks second on this list. Last but not least, with only one choice remaining, the numero uno Hot 100 is Fitzcarraldo.
What happened? The Pongo? We are drifting into the Pongo!
The story of an entrepreneur trying to bring the opera to the Amazon, which sounds intriguing, is, it's baffling, but at the same time, the film in which Herzog's style finally clicked for me. Not only was this story just as compelling as all of his others, I was enthralled by this with the knowledge of the impracticalities which were going on behind the scenes. And that's thanks to another documentary by Les Bank, which is called The Burden of Dreams, which goes over this, which I also would recommend. But the inhospitable rainforest had taken lives and foot of crew, and all the while Herzog was trying to pull a legitimately 320-pound ship up a mountain manually. He also lets a ship essentially just freelance go through seemingly raging rapids on the Amazon River. But those shots, while insanely impractical on the face of it, were the shots that felt like you were truly witnessing something you had never seen before and will probably never see before, because it's real. There's nothing see-through about it, and even if it would take years and years and years for the CGI to get so good, for you to have that feeling of disbelief in what you're watching, which is, it's like in a sense where you're caught somewhere in between being completely invested in the film and also taken aback by the film. And literally that in and of itself is like catching lightning in a bottle. So from one perspective, you have these absolutely breathtaking scenes, and on top of that, I had watched enough of Herzog to finally start to like get fully on board with what he was doing. And all that being said, it came together to where I appreciated this more than anything else I had seen from Herzog up until this point. The music is beautiful. The shots along the Amazon are well executed, especially when considering how difficult a task that would be. And Klaus Kinski's performance is possibly, it's at least top 2 of the times he worked with Herzog. And I would venture to say top 3 in his entire career. I have seen little of Kinski outside of his collaborations with Herzog, but I think in The Great Silence he's wonderful. I think he's great as Aguirre, and I think he's also amazing as Fitzcarraldo. So I think it's one of his crowning performances as an actor. There are very few movies remotely close to this one, and like I said, it's one of the few examples I've seen where lightning was caught in a bottle for the film. I give this a 9 out of 10, and it's not only my favorite of the bunch, but also one of my top 100 movies of all time. All that being said, I got to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll drop my Herzog letterboxed list down below so you can look at all of the Herzog movies I've seen. I think at this point the Kinski collaborations make up half of what I've seen. There's been a good bit of documentaries I've seen, as well as some collaborations with Bruno S. So check out that list if you're looking for more Herzog movies to watch. And also you can keep tabs and see, Taco, he rewatched Aguirre. Now it's his #1 movie. Who knows? Also, subscribe to the channel and ring the bell icon, because at some point in the future, I do want to make a larger list of my Herzog top 10, especially after I've seen more of his films, just to kind of put everything into perspective. I hope you liked this video. Again, be sure to click like, subscribe, and drop a comment down below of your personal rankings, because I want to check those out as well. Thank you again. I'll catch y'all on the flippity flip. Bye, y'all.